Hey, look, we're live for round two of two today. Let's see if I can flub this sponsorship message like I did on the last one. All right, this podcast is brought to you by Channel Programs, Channel Command, the ultimate tool to recruit, manage, and enable channel partners more effectively. Say goodbye to over-engineered, expensive PRMs and embrace the only no-code channel-first solution that boasts engagement and gets vendors up and running in minutes. So my next guest really doesn't need any introduction because you probably see him all over the place. But I'll do a quick bio on him. Uh, Seriously, it's an honor to have Chris Weiser joining us. He's the founder of Seven Figure MSP, the Weiser Agency, and Weiser Organics. He's also an angel investor in several ventures and an enthusiastic supporter of multiple number one ranked racing teams. And we'll get into that, where he's dialing in from these days. With over 30 years of experience in the technology industry, Chris has achieved remarkable success, including scaling and selling his own MSP. Impressive accomplishments include twice achieving the top spot on the Inc. 5000 list, having a scholarship named in his honor at his alma mater, being multiple 2 CCX winner. Hopefully I said that right. I think I know what that is, but maybe Chris can enlighten us here. And then growing his business revenue by an astounding 2,416% in the last 3 years, despite obviously all the stuff that's going on in the industry. So if you've seen him, if you've been in around the space, follow Chris, you know that he's moving fast, doing some great things, and I'm going to add him to the stage now.
What's
there
up,
he
brother?
is.
How you
Right
doing,
as you
man?
right as you conveniently cough. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I had muted myself, so we're good.
Yeah. All right, so let's get into where you are today, because it touched on in your background, your affinity and your past lives and kind of in racing cars, but you're out and you're out, as they say. I guess that movie says, is this heaven? No,
I'm
it's
in Iowa. Yeah, I'm in
Iowa.
central Iowa. It's funny, they were talking about Field of Dreams last night at the event I was at. So like you mentioned, I used to drive. Well, I'm involved in racing, but I used to drive dirt track sprint cars, which is the dirt track quarter to half mile tracks with the wings or the fins on the top. Grew up in that in southern Wisconsin, and kind of have continued the family tradition along with doing that. And I sponsor a few different cars. In fact, I've shown you on my phone here in our little pregame. I was here with my friend Rico. This is his car from last night. He was actually on our stage in Indianapolis because we did our indie show a couple months ago in May, and he came and did a little Q&A. And it was really cool to watch how him running his race team all actually parallels what so many business owners. Business is business, right? It's like the stuff parallels, and he's running a $2.5 million a year race team at bootstrapped, which is actually really rare and not a whole lot different than what we do in B2B days. So a lot of that came and had a lot of good similarities. So it's pretty cool. So yeah, so I'm central Knoxville, Iowa today.
Knoxville, Iowa. Yeah, no, it is interesting. I've been advising some companies outside of our traditional technology MSP space. Well, actually, in the apparel space, another one in medical devices. And it's funny that the business challenges they transcend every industry, right? I mean, sure, there's nuance to to the type of revenue, and every industry has its own challenges. But it's at a macro level, it's amazing. The themes that are just repeatable across every single different business that's out there.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah,
sure
it's funny how
you see that a lot.
all problems everywhere, right? It's all the same.
That's it.
Agreed.
That's it. So all right. So let's get a little flavor of your background, but like take us to early Chris Weiser days, pre-entrepreneurship. What were the early days? What got you kind of into this tech space? And let's go from there.
Yeah, I mean, so much of this for me was I was good at technology just natively, and you and I are similar ages, I think. So I go back to it's really funny that whole outage we all faced in the last few weeks here with the big software that had issues, and they were talking about Southwest Airlines surviving it because they were all on Windows 3.1. My kind of very first forays into this was I remember manually upgrading with floppy disks my parents' Compaq from Windows 3.1 to Windows 95, and I just naturally was good at all that stuff, and it kind of transcended into also being good at I don't have issues with taking risks. So a lot of that also transcends because you can be really good at your specific craft. And we were talking about how it transcends multiple different industries or whatever. I mean, good lawyers aren't necessarily good business owners. Good doctors aren't necessarily good business owners. The same thing comes down to, if you're good at technology, that doesn't necessarily mean you're a good business owner. In fact, what I will tell you that I've seen since we've started Figure MSP, the best techs are usually the worst business owners. And it's just, it doesn't mean it can't be learned, but it's all those habits help you start, right? So much of that has just transcended into me taking risks. I didn't go to college. So you mentioned my alma mater. That happens to be my high school that I went to. That's my alma mater because I didn't go to college. I'm all self-taught in everything that I've done, and execution and moving and just not being afraid of taking those risks has taken me from being a single person computer store owner to building a single person MSP to transcend to selling that, building a single person business coaching practice. And, now having, 40, 30, 40, 50 people. I don't even know what our roster is right now. But it all kind of the same exact principles propel you into the next platform, I think. And the same applies with racing. The same applies with business, taking risks, being willing to put yourself out there and kind of not caring what people think of you is a bit, those things all kind of go together.
Yeah, I couldn't agree, more strongly. Absolutely. Yeah. So how do you determine what level of risk is acceptable, right? Because I feel like you've reinvented yourself a couple times, right? Kind of, this early kind of racing career, kind of came up to tech space, MSP space, and now you have this, say new persona, but you have this, this persona that's really, kicking people in the pants and getting them to, get their butts moving forward. So that, you got to think of how to rephrase this question, but you said you're okay and comfortable with taking risk, but how do you calculate risk, in starting a business?
It's definitely a challenge. I think the biggest thing is making sure, and like you are advising other different verticals, I am also doing similar stuff. I also have my own SaaS application. I'm a partner in a law firm. I have all kinds of different things that are happening. I got a bunch of different properties. So I think some of this is looking at each individual vertical that you're going to look at, or, let's just say specifically the MSP client, being an MSP or being an MSP vendor, cash flow matters. Cash flow. So when you come down to it, almost all of my decisions are based upon what's short-term risk, what's long-term risk, and is it going to directly be, if I completely miss the pitch, what's it going to look like on the backside? And, most of the time you're going to be in pretty good shape, and certain things it takes more. So I think for me, it really depends on what does that long-term risk look like. I'm always willing to, I think most of us as business owners are willing to accept some type of short-term fail. Like that's part of the deal. It's natural, et cetera, as you build up. But what does 1 year out look like? Let's say you hit completely zero. And if that's tolerable, then it's looking at it and deciding where you're going to go. But what's also very unique about, and you've come out of a few exits as well. So I'm, super proud to be in this little community of people that have exited their companies and succeeded. When you start to build this, you build this network of people, and it gets, to me, it's a little bit easier the next step up. Maybe not easier. The risks are bigger, but your connection opportunities are better. So I think we're all, the more we move up, the more we're minimizing that risk. And then it's just kind of deciding what level you're comfortable with. Honestly, to me, it's that. And there's definitely some people that I know that are very wealthy people that are comfortable with zero risk. And they just, but the way that I look at it, nothing ventured, nothing gained. Right. You could take very minimal risk, and you might get minimal gain with it. Or you might get minimal loss as well. So to me, it's making some decisions and deciding what you're just personally comfortable with.
Has there ever been, something in the past, maybe that one that got away, or something that haunts you? I guess maybe in a business venture or some type of risk or scenario that was out there that didn't end the way you thought it would?
Well, so there's two parts to that. So there's something you just mentioned there about something that haunts me. I make a point to not have regret. And this is a very purposeful thing that I have, because I can't control what happened. And there's a lot of people that we know in our personal lives, and this is a big difference between business owners, entrepreneurs, successful, high performers, usually have a pretty short memory. And I think that's a really important thing that I try and stay on. I actually took a lot of that. I'm a big golfer also. So I took a lot of this from Tiger Woods, and Tiger Woods had this 10-yard rule. And he's like, okay, I'm not going to think about the next shot until I'm 10 yards behind the ball. And then I'm not going to think about that last shot after I'm 10 yards past it. So it's not a whole lot different than the world that I live in with this. So I kind of don't live in a world of regrets. You're going to miss the ball sometimes. I do have one lesson that I learned back in my early 20s. This has really propelled me to this day. It's not, it's not a regret, but I kind of watched, you mentioned the term that I was dialing in from somewhere. We both come from dial-up ISP days, right? Where we had AOL. Sure. I remember being in AOL and early stages for me, I was partners in a dial-up ISP. As I came out of high school, I started to work at this ISP. It was my first foray into working in the industry at all. And I watched them grow. And this was right before DSL hit. We all kind of remember that high-speed broadband period was coming. Well, they had Southeastern Wisconsin dominated. They were doing really, really well. Had a big company come in to try and potentially acquire them. And I was a 10% owner. They were looking at a pretty good, I think it was a $10 million exit or something like that back then. And I watched them kind of thumb their nose at the offer and try for more. And 6 months later, DSL had taken its foothold and they withdrew the offer and ended up getting nothing for the whole thing. Wow. So their dial-up ISP just basically, I don't want to say it failed. Still going, but you look at where we are now, it's a totally different animal, even a year after that. And a kind of great lesson on that for me was, if somebody shows up on your doorstep and you've done the right things, take the money. It's kind of the rule. Like, I don't see it as a sellout. And that's actually what happened to me with my MSP. Also, I was doing all the right things to maximize profitability by design. I never was looking to sell. And I had somebody show up on my doorstep from Chicago and I was in the Milwaukee, Wisconsin market. They showed up on my doorstep with almost a I can't refuse it offer. And I could have held out for more money, but what do you risk? So that's been, I would say I don't live in a world of regret. I don't have many regrets in my life. I don't think I have any actual regrets in my life because I can't control that. But I do look at that lesson and say, always be doing the best things you can to maximize your cash flow and maximize your recurrent revenue and maximize your value. And then if somebody shows up, they show up and don't refuse that money. That's kind of a good lesson that I learned.
All right. So it's no regrets, but it's just lessons learned, and how do you apply those lessons learned moving forward, not to trip up. Yeah. I think that's a common theme. It's, you go into the second, third time and, as an entrepreneur, and you think, all right, I've done this once, I've done it twice, I got this, and I think sometimes you got to forget, how hard it can be. Right. Yeah. And, so it's, I don't know, I've been reflecting on it a lot lately, as we have these really interesting ebbs and flows. And obviously we're recording this today, we're live and recording it, but on a day where the market's down, I think at last I saw 1,000 points or something.
I didn't even look at it actually, but I saw some stuff on Twitter that people are freaking out. So I'll have to look at that and see what's going on. But
yeah, hopefully just another ebb and flow or part of the business cycle. So, all right, so you get this offer from this organization in Chicago. You get on that path. It's an offer you can't refuse. You exit, and then now you're kind of faced with, all right, what's next? And so was that the jumping off point to start Seven Figure, or was there
pretty much that? My wife and I decided that we wanted to pick up and move out of winter is reality. Moved to Austin, Texas. In fact, Matt probably lives 3 miles from me. I don't know if you know that, but wow. he lives really close to me. And we spent some time together down in the Austin area. And I looked at, I took a 1-year contract to go work with an MSP channel vendor, kind of just figuring out what the next steps were. And as I came back to it, I started to say, like, okay, I had all this success and I'm talking to all these MSPs. Why did I have the success I had, and what things was I doing? And as I continued to look at the MSP industry, I looked at a whole, kind of saw that there was a gap for sales and charging the right way and doing the things that MSPs should be doing. And that enabled me to start. It actually was Chris Weiser's Inner Circle initially is what it was. I was doing all this one-on-one coaching.
Yeah.
And I think you and I taught, we knew each other from your days at your company. And then I had started to move towards doing it. It was more like one-on-one consulting with the mindset of, okay, how am I going to scale this around that? I knew that my processes and all the right things, because we put it in about 15 to 20 MSPs and it was working. Everybody was working, but it was very one-on-one. And one-on-one is great, but it's very difficult to scale because you're just no different than an MSP. How are you going to do that? Because there's only one guy. I was one guy at that point. And I had this decision that I was going to take it to a scalable place, which was all group, all remote. And it enabled me to really capitalize on my curriculum, which was all sales focused, all cash flow focused, moving the MSP out of all I care about is tech to I'm going to focus on building a business the right way. And I'm never going to sit here and poo-poo the MSP industry, but even my MSP, we are focused on being great technicians versus I'm going to be a very profitable business. And that's a pretty, this too, it's a pretty common theme. I'm a great tech, but I don't run a great business. And as we started to scale that around, we changed the name back in 2019 to, in fact, I believe it was April of 2019, changed the name to Seven Figure MSPs, kind of decided that brand and went down that path. And we were all remote, all group. I could work anywhere. My staff could be anywhere. My clients could be anywhere. And then COVID hit. And that scalable model. And this is a great lesson too, for proving that maybe following your vision and doing the things that you want to do versus just doing it the way it always has been done. Right. Because I made a decision coming out of being landlocked in Milwaukee that I was never going to be landlocked in a city again. I felt landlocked in Milwaukee, different times, obviously, than it is now. But when COVID hit, we were able to do this skyrocket thing because we didn't change. Nothing had to change for our coaching delivery platform because we were all Zoom, we were all Teams and Slack and all the remote stuff that we had to do, and meeting in person, which we're still doing to this day. We have our Denver quarterly literally next week from when we're recording this. It just, all things started to hit at that time. So I had built a really good community. I had built a very scalable platform. I was not afraid, and not, you talk about that calculated risks thing. I was not afraid to take some calculated risks. And worst thing that happens is people didn't like. Really interesting point. I had no idea, because I had 24 one-on-one coaching members that I was meeting with every single week personally. And I went back to them and I said, I'm flipping this to group, and no longer I'm going to reduce your price, but you're going to meet with me twice a week as a group. Nobody gets one-on-one anymore. And that was a pretty big risk if you think about it, because we got all these guys that were talking to me one-on-one. Nobody left. So I was able to scale better. I was able to deliver better content. I was able to not trade hours for dollars. And honestly, if anybody that's watching this, or Kevin on your side, if you've ever done 40 hours of meetings in a single week, it's a freaking lot. It was hard. I was, so I had built myself a mini prison. So that's what I had done, but with the mindset that I was going to scale it, obviously, but it's all kind of the reasons as to why, and the risks, and kind of where we've ended up today. Also took a calculated risk to do live events. Nobody had done live events the way that I was doing them. So we do it 4 per year, still do this to this day. We bounce around the nation. We have our members included, and we have guests included. So nobody's doing that. Nobody's still doing that in the industry like we're doing it. And we're about to do Denver next week. We have Penn Jillette from Penn and Teller is going to be our workshop keynote entrepreneur speaker. So we're just growing and getting bigger and bigger all the time, and it's pretty damn exciting.
That's awesome. So you have Denver next week, and I think the next one we were talking about is San Antonio, October 22nd through the 24th.
Correct. Yep. Spot on. So that's
okay.
Cool. And next year we're doing we're picking out venues right now, but our Q1 is going to be in San Diego, a place that we've never been. So we're bouncing. Winter months, usually your Q4 and your Q1, we do somewhere warm, or try and do warmish. Phoenix has been getting tough because it's so cold. So we're doing San Diego this Q1 in 2025. So yeah, bounce around. I think we got like 75, 80 guests for Denver. So that's pretty awesome. We're doing a whole concert at Red Rocks. It's a lot of fun, and it's fun. I like to do it too. So
yeah, you got Pendulette, and then you're gonna be doing something out of Red Rocks. I mean, that sounds like a heck of an event. So it's when you launch this, right? When you're doing one-on-one coaching and when you're doing group, right? One of the hardest things is that people have to buy into you, right? They have to buy into your background, and they got to buy into the fact that you're not just here's a roadmap and good luck, right? They have to buy into the fact that you've been there, that you're gonna hold their feet to the fire. You're gonna bring them not just best in class information, but you're gonna help them really transform and change. And so was it challenging for you to go from managing kind of this MSP tightly held, and then do that exit, but then you're really, from a brand or personal standpoint, I mean, you're putting yourself out there, like you are out there on the socials. And I think I even maybe made a comment to you, I don't know, like 6 months ago, 9 months ago, like you're one of my favorite people to follow on the socials because of the quality of the content, and just a lot of the no bullshit kind of messaging that you put out there. But was it hard to basically open up your persona publicly like that?
Well, yes and no. I mean, for the most part, for me, like, me personally, Matt knows me personally. That's kind of who I am. I'm not any different on this video than I am in person. It's pretty much the same exact stuff. So I think a lot of it is I kind of don't care what people think about me. And I think that's a really important thing, because imposter syndrome is a real challenge that many business owners have. I even watch this in my community. I'm not good enough for this. I kind of don't care. And I took some of that from Frank Abagnale. Have you seen Frank? Ever seen or watched Frank? And he did. That's for those of you that are watching this. That's the movie Catch Me If You Can that Leo DiCaprio was in. And Frank, I watched him at an ASCII event once, and he talked about how he got caught, and he got caught. One of the ways they caught him is he was a Harvard University professor for a full year. And they're like, how did you pull that off? Like, he's like, well, all I had to do was be smarter than the people in the room watching me. And it's kind of almost been like a staple in what I do. I don't have to be the smartest guy out there. I don't have to, I know I'm not the smartest guy out there, but if I can teach one piece to one person every day, they're going to move forward. And that's, the people that I've surrounded myself with. I have an amazing coaching team with Cindy Phillips and Lindsay Badillo and Ryan O'Hara and some of the other guys that we have on the team. If we can teach one MSP, one thing per day, and really help them move forward and get unstuck, that's our goal. That's what we're trying to do. And, so much of it is believing that. And then a lot of it also is I really try and be a visionary in the industry. I'm very proud of the fact that we were really ahead of the curve with the whole cybersecurity thing in MSP land. And I got a lot of heat I still get heat for the last 5 years for telling MSPs that they should charge differently and that they should charge based on a gross profit margin percentage versus just trying to be the cheapest guy in the room. And I've watched how that has evolved over the last 5 years, from getting ridiculed and laughed at to now I have company, and it's crazy. I mean, it's really crazy. I got ridiculed. I mean, there's an entire Reddit channel called Chris Weiser Sucks. So like we now make t-shirts about it. At the last event, we had squish balls, and they were all squish balls that had my face, and they said Chris Weiser Sucks on them, because it's just like all you can do is embrace it and believe here and say all of my principles are founded in reality. And I don't care what you think of me. I'm going to keep doing what I want. And if I can change a few lives along the way, that's the goal. So much of that has been believing in that. And here's actually another really good business lesson. We've basically been doing exactly the same marketing and sales strategic plan for not the last 5 months, the last 5 years. And I'll tell any of you that if you do one thing really well for a year straight, you're going to see success. It's literally that simple. And you guys are doing the same stuff at Channel Program. I watched Matt and you grow this. I'm very proud of what you guys are building. It's pretty cool. I'm proud of you because it's awesome. And seeing all your different products, but you do that you be consistent and you don't stray off that, you're going to have success. And that's going to really, one other thing that really helped with this, I put a system in that got my MSPs some quick wins. And when they get quick wins, that really helps here also, because you're seeing people have success.
Yeah. You know, it's funny, kind of going back to that, that kind of, and I'm glad the way you kind of described that, because I think a lot of the MSPs, especially the technical founders, and I'd probably put, we'd have to look at the, we do a survey or something like that, but you look at out of 100 MSPs, what, 80%, 85% are going to be more technically oriented technical founders, and then it might be, they have to pick up they have to pick the sales and marketing knack, typically very introverted, and I imagine that imposter syndrome is more than real. And so that's kind of where I was going. I'm glad you kind of answered it that way, because I think that's one of the hardest things for the industry is to be, to kind of get out of their own way and kind of just saying, all right, I'm going for it. And then, secondarily, right, I mean, you're right in that. And I remember, looking back at some of the subreddits and all that stuff. And look, you've made it when you have your own subreddit dedicated to,
Not wrong, I guess,
to dogging you, right? So congratulations on that. But yeah, I think you remember going back a couple of years where you're saying lean in, and you were actually telling MSPs, don't move your security pricing up by $1, $2, kind of commensurate with your stack cost. You're saying, no, you got to go all in. You got to push the barrier. You got to push the boundary. And I think that was fortuitous, because we're at this point now where, and we see it with our data, right? Stacks are stacks, right? And there is so much parity in these stacks, and we've got some visuals, that we put out in some of our content where it shows that it's like 82% of stacks have the exact same 21 products in there. And there's some variations on which vendors or whatever, but the challenge is that you got margins being eroded, right? You've got thousands of new market entrants coming in, right? Every year you've got them coming in from the bottom up, so the net new, brand new organic MSPs, and then you get all these VARs and agents now coming down to this space. And it's ridiculously hard for an MSP to differentiate. But you've been you picked up the torch 5 years ago, and you're really leaning kind of the cybersecurity and packaging and differentiation. And it seems like now the market's really starting to understand that that's where they should have been 5 years ago.
Yeah, I think I had I do a weekly group call on Monday mornings to all our new clients, and one of the things I talked about this morning is that the MSP industry is in the best place it's ever been from a financial standpoint, because we are so relevant. And the big outage issue we just had in the last month here is going to further enforce that, because the MSP now, and this is part of where the challenge comes in. You're in the best place you've ever been, but if you allow what you always did to dictate, you're going to not be any different. So you have to change a little bit. And you said something that was very relevant there, that the stack is the stack. How we came up with our pricing, my mindset around the pricing was, what should we be doing for every single MSP client? You think about that, not what the client wants. If the client doesn't know any better, they've always been doing tech the exact same way that they've always done it, but times have changed. Things are a lot different now than they've been. So if you had unlimited budget, this is my big question that I ask on every stage that I'm on. If you had unlimited budget at every client, what would you put in for them? And then the MSP is like, well, I do this and this. That's what you should be doing. Oh, well, I can't do that because the client doesn't want to pay. Okay, that's fine. You have to show them why. So you have to lead them around a path as to, hey, Mr. Client, Mr. Decision. First of all, you got to get the right people in the room. Stop talking to the gatekeepers. Get the people that, because they'll all care when their money's gone, right? Get the right people in the room and show them why risk management matters now. And once you flip that, it's kind of a reframe. It's a brain reframe, because times are different. Once you do that, they start to understand this is no longer about prevention. We can't prevent anymore. And you got to start there, guys. It's no longer about prevention. It's now about, I'm managing your risk with putting the right tools in, the best solution. Like you said, the stack is the stack. It should be what's best for that specific client situation. For the most part, 90% of them are going to be the same. But is a lawyer going to have more stuff than a CPA, or maybe a doctor or maybe a general contractor. It's going to be a little bit different, but the base principles are the same. Then you show them why, and you show them that you're going to manage risk. And it's not about the MSP's got to pick up all the pieces anymore. Now it's about, okay, we got to do our best to protect, recover, and then get the insurance company to actually pay the claim.
Right.
It's a different time, but you know what you can do with all that? You can make more money than you've ever had. So you got to change your brain to a growth mindset, a financial mindset also. That does not mean that you're a crappy MSP. That means that we're shifting to supporting, delivering the best solution. Honestly, you should be able to do a better job as an MSP if you actually do it that way. It's just kind of getting caught up now is the challenge. And that takes a lot of mental fortitude as an MSP owner to really evolve like that. You mentioned all the introvert mindset, and you got to change a little bit. And you got to be open. It's very, very difficult to fill a cup that's already full. So you got to be open to change and evolution.
So at the events, obviously you have a massive, focus on sales, right? And again, we said, the tech is the tech and what have you. So if I'm an MSP and I'm coming in, I'm stuck, I've been, I don't know if you gauge it, from a revenue perspective. Hey, I'm stuck at 2 million. How do we get to here? Or, I'm trying to get my first customer off the ground, or I'm at $100,000 business. I'm trying to get to 7 figures. I mean, what's kind of is there a typical profile or demographic of a somebody that joins, the organization and you guys work with?
Yeah, we're roughly 10 million and below is kind of our mindset that we like, because they need the most help. A lot of the $10 million MSPs are starting to actually get some operational maturity and start to move up that ladder, but everybody in between, because as well as I do, I'm not going to say it's easy to get to 1 million, but it's dramatically easier to get to 1 million than it is to get to 2. And then to get from 2 to 5 is your next level stuff. And then, 5 to 10 is different level stuff. So much of this is having a framework. And what we do at 7-Figure MSP is we are an accelerant. So all that baseline stuff, whether you're a startup MSP, is fine. Totally different animal coming into this industry now than it was 24 to 36 months ago, because you could start up as a break fix shop, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I don't think you can realistically start up as a break fix shop anymore, because you are expected. Now, can you pull it off? Yes, you probably could. But are you doing the right things for what the client actually needs? Probably not, because you're doing things to just make do, to get by. And you're usually probably working with your, I don't want to say penny pinchers, but your cheaper business owners that have never changed, are not willing to change, not willing to evolve. So you probably need some decent funding to start an MSP now. I mean, I'm not saying you can't do it at all, but you need to do it the right way. And then you need a framework. And honestly, it should start with sales. And I'm going to tell you, this is another little visionary thing. I'm going to predict in the next, it's kind of here already with most of our clients, but for the rest of the industry, in the next 6, 12, 24 months, the MSP is going to move away from being your tech shop to being much more of a general contractor, allocating solutions. We're so unique and so special in this channel. I can speak to you and Matt more than I can speak to anybody about this, because this industry has an amazing assortment of vendors that the general public can't get to. And the the recent outage we watched is a great example of what they're facing. So your opportunity now is to be very good at sales, be very good at lead gen, focus on your ICP, that's your ideal client profile, and build it up from there with a sales mindset. You don't have to be the guy. Great example of this. 2 years ago, the MSP is probably like, okay, I should get a CISSP and focus on being really good tech or really good at cybersecurity. Now I'm going to hire any one of 3 or 4 or 5 vendors. They have the guys on staff with the CISSPs. I'll outsource all my stuff to them, from help desk to fully managed SOC to SIM to all those different pieces. And then I'm going to handle the client relationship and the sales and the cash flow. It's a totally different animal than what it was 2 years ago and beyond. Because now, if I was to start an MSP right now, I'd focus 100% on sales. I'd pick like that stack we talked about, 3 or 4 or 5 vendors in that stack, form the relationships, have all the client conduit. I'd manage the sales, the client relationship, the account management, the onboarding, and probably manage the help desk. I wouldn't even run it. And that's what you're doing now. So it's much more that general contractor relationship. That's where your profitable MSPs are right now.
Yeah, we had an old mentor that, one of his favorite phrase was smart sourcing, right? It's not just outsourcing, it's smart sourcing.
Man,
Yeah,
so
and with the gig economy kind of developing over the last 5 or 6 years, obviously accelerated by COVID, right? It's now, to your point, you're able to take elements of that kind of gig framework, right?
Yeah.
Focus on the sales and marketing, focus on operational efficiency and creating that playbook, which you help with. And then, and then smart sourcing. It's, when we publish our report here in about a month and a half, we've got our annual, like last year we did this, the tech map. At that point, I think we had 600 vendors and roughly 700 products represented. This next go around, and we haven't cut it off yet. I think we'll do the cutoff, I think September 1st. But at this point, we're at over 900 vendors and 1,400 plus products. Yeah, wow. So yes, you have to understand what's going on out there, and our Navisec visual helps you kind of understand that. But it's, I think identify the problem, then bring in the technology, to solve it, versus I think a lot of MSPs is just historically just, shiny object, shiny object, shiny object. Then I've got all these things, and then they try to package it, can't figure it out. And it feels like you guys help them. You really kind of cut through the
we're
noise.
An accelerant is really what it is. We give you the process, especially with ways to go back and talk to your, and this is probably the biggest factor. The MSP right now, most that we see coming into our program are terrified to have conversations with their existing client. And they're kind of at an impasse, and it's getting worse and worse and worse because they're like, okay, I don't want to talk to them because I don't want to show them that I haven't been doing full cybersecurity, because most MSPs have been doing, I'm not going to, MSPs are not security guys. And that doesn't rip on anybody that's watching this. It's just, it is what it is. I was never a security guy. The MSSP would handle that. That's kind of the way I looked at it back then. Yeah. Well, now it's like all in one. And if you're touching tech, you're expected to be cybersecurity first. That's just the way that the deal has happened. And it's just such an opportunity for you to go back, increase the relationship with your existing clients, increase the communication, increase their awareness, but also increase your revenue with them. Over 50% of your potential revenue is sitting out there unrealized at your client because you haven't talked to them about it. And then we're watching insurance companies come in now and actually give assessments to their clients, and they're coming back to the MSP. We're seeing this like literally 5 to 10 of these a week coming to us right now in our interview room with our prospective MSPs that come in. I got this existing client that came back with this insurance audit form, and we don't know how to fill it out because we're not doing half of the stuff that's here. We're not mandating it because the client just wanted this. So it's really important that you guys hit this stuff head on and have a strategy and a plan, or you're going to end up getting hung out to dry. And we're just going to see that whole mindset really, it's just going to get more and more and more over the next couple of years here, especially as the breaches continue, because regardless of what anybody thinks, the insurance industry is driving all of this, really. They're the ones paying the bill at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, and I think, it took them, 5, 6, 7 years kind of get in, kind of figure out the actuaries, and then really figure out what's going on at the MSP and their customer now. Yeah, I think now it's going to categorically change how MSPs have to approach their customers moving forward.
Already is, absolutely, especially the supply chain attack and some of these other things that are happening. If there's one word of caution I can give anybody that's watching this, it's you better make sure that your agreements with your clients talk about collateral damage and where that all lies, because if you have a vendor upstream have a problem, or more importantly, when they get breached and they file a claim, they're gonna come look at me. I don't care whether you have the best relationship in the world. That insurance company from the other company, if they're paying out a claim, they're coming downstream. I don't care what you think. They're coming downstream. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's it. That highlights why you have to have really a 360-degree view of what's going on at your customer. Not just provide them, the email, and it's great to keep their email, flowing and their backups, backing up and making them feel like they're secure. But you really have to understand holistically what's going on with those customers. And if you're not being proactive about that, then shame on you. And if you're not being proactive, you better get out to one of Chris's events and get in this group and start becoming more progressive, more forward with this, because it's going to swallow up a lot of MSPs.
Yeah,
You
we
got,
give you guys support from that
yeah,
top to bottom, which is cool.
yeah. Awesome. Well, Chris, I know you're out in the middle of Iowa, and you probably got some better things to do with your time out there.
Heaven.
But
It's not Iowa, it's heaven, right?
heaven, well, same thing, right? I'm gonna go back to the beach down here at the Jersey Shore, and gonna get ready for our big Q4 push. But thanks for joining me, man. And
Yes, sir.
seriously, encourage everybody to check out the 7-Figure MSP events. We'll have some links in the show notes, and engage with Chris, and yeah, we'll see you out there.
Yeah, and I'll be at a bunch of different things in fall. Be at IT Nation for sure, and a couple other different events this fall. So feel free to come say hi if you see me out. And thanks so much for having me, Kevin.
Yeah, man. All right, bud. Thank you.